Welcome to the Christy Jones Show, your go-to space for thriving in business and life. I'm Christy, and after decades in the multifamily housing industry, a business owner, and now speaker and coach, I help ambitious professionals step into bold leadership, ditch the self-doubt, and have more of what they want, more success and more fulfillment. If you're ready to flourish and thrive, you are in the right place, my friend. Hey, my friend, welcome back to the podcast. So glad you are here hanging out with me today. Really excited to jump into today's episode. I'm going to drop some fire sauce on you today. That is the leadership tips, really a mindset shift that you need to hear. You need to hear this. So if you feel like, maybe let me ask you this, do you feel like everything falls on you? Like if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. Have you had those thoughts before? If your team can't make a move without you, if you're constantly stepping in, fixing, problem solving, answering questions, I'm going to say something that you might not love, but you are not leading. You are carrying the team, essentially babysitting even times. And the longer that you do that, the more that you become the bottleneck, the more that you actually become the issue that holds progress and holds the team back. And I know you don't want that. I know you don't want that. So let me share with you a few things. I've got like 3 things that I want to share with you that maybe you haven't thought of before. Most times what I find that people that are doing everything, they feel like everything falls on them. They're doing it because they don't know what else to do. So it's not out your if what I just said, like you went, ooh, ouch, or I do that. And I don't want to be what holds progress back. I don't want to be what holds the team back or even my own success back. Then you're not doing this on purpose. Many times nobody's like setting out to do this on purpose. So let me give you some scenarios and talk about 3 ways that leadership is not about doing more. It's about creating more capacity through other people. It's you creating that capacity with others. If you are in property management or multifamily housing, like I have been for 27 plus years, you understand, and in many businesses can relate to this, but today's examples I'm going to give when I share some stories or examples, if you're in property management, you're going to like connect the dots so freaking fast and get what I'm saying. But this absolutely applies to so many industries. Leadership is so broad. We build teams. We have to get things accomplished through other people. It all cannot fall on your shoulders. That's part of leadership where, again, you're creating capacity through other people. But if you're in property management, you know all too well about adding more properties, getting maybe even a short notice that we're taking over another property. When? On Thursday, and it's Monday. So it's about having to be able to step into leadership, make adjustments on the fly really quick. It's about acquiring more people. Sometimes you have to bring on more individuals. So all of a sudden your team's going to grow. It could be in property management, all of a sudden your list of responsibilities can literally shift in a day. I mean, property management is extremely fluid, ever changing. One of the reasons why I really liked the apartment business. I think that's why, a little side note here, when I started in the business as a leasing agent at the age of 26, all those years ago, it really spoke to me because every single day I went to work, even though at that time I wasn't dealing with things that the managers and leadership that they were dealing with. But I quickly learned that every day can be an entirely different day. I mean, the amount of things that come up in the course of a day. No 2 days are the same. And so I liked that. I liked that there was a lot of variety and it kept it fresh and kept it new. And it was not the last thing that the apartment business is mundane. I would not ever attach that word to the apartment business at all. It's ever changing. Now, while that has a lot of advantages to it, it also brings a lot of interesting challenges. So I learned really quickly in the apartment business that one person cannot do it all. I learned that I could not do it all. A lot of these things that I'm sharing on the podcast today, I've made these same missteps. I've made these same, we'll call them mistakes, but really, they're just learning opportunities. I look at things as stepping stones to the next thing. And you know how I look at failure. Failure is not failure, it is merely information. And how we choose to process it, how we choose to look at it. And we cannot fear, if you're not doing something wrong, considered, quote, wrong every once in a while, having a mistake, having a misstep, if you're not having any of those, you are not, in my opinion, you're not stretching enough. You're not taking enough bold action. Okay, that's a whole nother conversation. So I got to bring it back to what I came on here to talk about today. But you get my drift. You get my drift. Okay. So that shift equals this shift that I'm talking about on why to be an effective leader, you can't be like, I'm the one man show. I'm just going to do it all and handle it all. And it's all on my shoulders because performance, making this shift is going to be performance plus confidence. And that's going to give you better results. And at the end of the day, that's what we want, right? That is what we want. So let me talk about the first thing. I've got three things I'm going to touch on. The first thing, why leaders over carry. Why do leaders over carry? Why is it that you feel like you're having to carry the water up the hill every damn day for everybody? And you're flat out exhausted by the end of the day, the end of the week. Let me tell you some of the things that I used to tell myself and that I hear other leaders share is it's faster if I just do it. Does that not strike a chord with you? Have you ever found yourself saying it's faster if I just do it? And sometimes that is true. I have done that so many times in my life. And when I look past all the years in business and just in jobs in general, I've worked for like way before 26, going back to my early jobs, bussing tables, running cash registers, the high school part-time jobs, things like that. It's just what you learn, and you do learn this pretty early on, is that sometimes it's just faster if I just do it. And there is a time and place for that. I'm not going to say that that is not accurate. But if you're wanting to train people and you're wanting to lead people and you're wanting to develop your team, you always doing it because you're the fastest at it is not going to get you to where you want to get, is not going to really give you develop that opportunity to develop your team the way that they need to be developed. So have you ever said it's faster if I just do it? No one does it like I do. Have you ever said that? No one does it like I do. I don't want this done wrong. That's why I'm just going to do it. I don't want this done wrong. I don't want to overwhelm my team. Maybe you feel like if you delegate and, why you're over carrying and overdoing for your team is because you don't want to overwhelm them. They're already stressed out. They already have so much on their plate. And oftentimes, again, I say this, it's going to probably rub someone the wrong way, but often that is control disguised as you caring. Let me say that again. Oftentimes, I don't want to overwhelm my team. They already have so much to do. Sounds great, sounds fluffy, nice, so sweet, so thoughtful, but often that is control disguised as caring. At the end of the day, over caring does not come from strength. It comes from a lack of trust. And maybe that lack of trust is either in your team or maybe It's a lack of trust in your own leadership. Maybe you are doubting if you can really do this. You don't you feel like you're on shaky ground when it comes to your ability to be a leader, to step into the role, to do the things that you've been called to do. Really, really normal, very normal. But let me share with you my second point on why I'm talking about this today, because it is costing you greatly. It is costing you, it is costing your team for you to be in this place of, I have to do it all. It's either me or it ain't gonna get done. It's costing you. You already know what it's costing you. You feel it. You feel it. You become, like I said earlier, the bottleneck. You become what stops progression. Your team, they stay dependent on you. You say you want them to, you want to delegate, you want to give them more opportunities, but you're stagnating their growth. You're keeping them dependent on you. The more that you carry all of the load, you're limiting their growth. How are they going to grow if they and make mistakes? We learn sometimes the best things that we learn are often from the missteps. I mean, I've got a laundry list of those, a laundry list, so long. But that's how we grow. That's how we figure out, okay, that didn't work. I'm not going to do that next time. Let's try this approach. So when you don't delegate to your team, when you make everything yours, you're not giving them that opportunity to grow and also that opportunity to make a mistake once in a while. It costs you because you stay in that constant state of overwhelm, that constant state of frustration, where you're just throwing your hands up. Every little thing sets you off. You end your day, you get in your car, you drive home, you're just fed up. And you're fed up because you have to do everything and nobody can do it right. And my friend, we need to be really taking ownership of this and realizing that you trying to do everything and not delegate and not take this opportunity to develop your team, that it's costing you greatly. So you're going to stay in that overwhelm. You're going to stay in that frustration. And you're not going to be able to move forward and scale and get the results that you're trying to get at work. You're going to be just stuck. Again, you become the bottleneck. So every time you hold on to something that your team could own and take a run at and try to do it, you're not helping, you're holding them back. And I realize, again, sometimes we're not doing this purposely. We just want to get it done. We just want to get the result that we need to get. But there is ways that you can delegate and that you can still, and I'll share a story because I learned this again through trial and error, through making mistakes, but to delegate, but then still make sure that you're tapped in. So you're ensuring that everything's moving towards the result that you're shooting for. So remember that every time you hold on to something that your team could take on, that they could own, that they could take the lead on, you're not helping, you are holding them back. So if your team needs you for absolutely everything, you did not build a team, you have built dependency. You're essentially babysitting. They don't like it. It's just as frustrating for them. I mean, yeah, in the moment, maybe they're like, whew, good, I don't have to deal with that. But that is not, that's not going to move you guys in the direction you need to go. It's not, you're not going to be able to scale your team. You're going to be stuck forever. So you don't, the goal is not to create dependency on you as a leader. You want to be able, it's no different than if you're a parent and you're raising kids. And when you're raising them, you're teaching them things, you're giving them the opportunity to do things on their own. And yes, they're going to have little trip ups and they're going to learn and they're going to, forget some things as they're growing up and you're preparing them for the real world because you don't want them to remain dependent on you. You want them to be self-sufficient, productive adults in the world, able to manage their emotional self, their physical self, take care of what needs to be taken care of in life. And so if you're constantly with your kids like wanting them to be dependent on you, how are you creating that? You're stunting their growth, you're holding them back. Same thing in business. So you don't want them to be dependent on you. You want to be able to like push them out of the nest and be at some point be like, you are ready to fly. You are ready to do the thing. And then they feel good about themselves. They have learned about themselves. They're ready for more. Leadership is about developing people. It is about developing people. Leadership is not to see how many people you can get to be dependent on you. So let's talk about the third point I want to make today, and that's how do you actually delegate? Okay, that sounds great, but how do you do that? I mean, right now I am carrying the water. I do feel like I'm doing everything, and I don't want to do that. I didn't realize I was doing that so much. So let's talk about this third point I want to make on how do we actually delegate? How does that happen? So, number one, I want to say with delegate, and this is like actually twofold because there's a time and this is not like a cookie cutter thing. Like this is when you delegate and this is when you don't. You have to use you're in a position of leadership because you have the capacity to see things from a different angle, to evaluate, to make some decisions. So this is not like a cookie cutter of this is when you delegate and this is when you don't. But globally, I want to share that you want to delegate outcomes and not just the task. And with that, I want to add that that's when you're dealing with someone that is not brand new, green behind the ears, doesn't know anything about maybe they just started or they're new in the industry. That's not when to use this. This is about delegating the outcome and not specific task. This is about someone that's maybe on your team. You've been working with them a while. They know the day to day. They get the gist of everything. They understand the common mission, the goal. They're not like brand spanking new. And a way to approach that is to say, this is what we have in front of us, but here's the results that we need to create. And I want to get you involved in this, but here's the results. So in property management, I'll use that as an example. When I would have a apartment community and let's say occupancy had dipped and we were in the 80s and you're hovering at that 85, 86, and we know this property can perform in the high 90s. So you're having a conversation with the property manager. You're like, hey, this property manager's been there, and you've had a lot of dialogue so this is not someone that like is brand new to the industry. They probably wouldn't be a property manager if they'd never worked in the business before. But what I would share with them is, hey, so here's, let me just give you like the big picture of where we're needing to get. And we need to get there by, if there's a timeline, like by the end of next month. We need to be at 95, 96% within X amount of weeks. And that's like a 10-point jump, let's say if you're at 85. And so maybe you sit down with them. Maybe you kind of do the math with them per se. Like that means let's look at our move outs, or let's look at this is what we have going out. So this means we'd have to have X amount of move-ins by and leases by such and such date. So maybe you kind of stair step it like that a little bit. That's probably what I would do, just to make sure that we were on the same page. That's generally how, I would do things. Is just have a lot of dialogue. But then say, so here's the result we need to create. And then I trust you to take your team and for you to figure out your path there. Now, I'm not going to sit there and tell that person exactly that you need to send this email and you need to do this and then you need to go here and you need to post this. And I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to say, here's the result we need to create. And I'm going to ask. We're going to have a lot of dialogue throughout the process. If you have questions, something you want to brainstorm, you want to like shoot it back and forth, I can come over, we can get on the phone, whatever. As a leader, you want them to feel supported. You don't want to just them to feel like you just tipped them out of the nest, like a bird out of the nest, and like, I'll talk to you in 3 months. But share with them. So you've just given them so much opportunity to now use their expertise and their ideas and lead their own team of the people that work there at that apartment community on how they're going to work towards and achieve those results that you've put out there. That allows them to grow. That allows them to build confidence. That allows them to also make some mistakes. One thing I used to always like to say is that we're going to make some mistakes. And if you feel like something's going haywire or that this is not, this is a mistake, I want to know about it. Like, let's talk about it quickly so we can course correct. What we don't want to do is like push it under the rug or act like it's not here. And then it just becomes more complicated. So if you get in a corner or you get in a situation or a mistake's been made, like come to me, tell me, like let's have a conversation. We can work through this. Like we'll figure it out together. So you don't want them to feel like they're just on an island, but you're giving them so much flexibility and you're delegating this to them and you're sharing with them, here's the result we need to get to, and you're giving them so much flexibility on how they get there and how they make it happen. I always found that when I went to the people that were working at that location, they knew way more inside information about the property and I mean even like tenant relations and certain buildings and certain challenge. Like listen as a leader, listen to what they're sharing with you. Now they might be stuck in a narrative of, well, we can't do this because of this, and we've never been able, we've never, you know, you're going to have to work with that person to shift their perspective because oftentimes if we are trying to delegate something and we're giving them the result that we want to create, sometimes they are stuck in a narrative of why it can't happen. That's not going to work. We have to get in a place where the possibility is there that we can create this outcome. But that is the work that you do as a leader in developing your people. Now, when you're going to delegate, I think I already said this, but when you're going to delegate, you don't just delegate and then hook it and you don't check in or follow up. And I learned this the hard way. So I remember early on in my career, new in property management as far as being a property manager. And we had out of our apartment community, we had taken on a commercial building, like a strip mall. And so my lead service tech, I had 3 techs and for the apartments. And so we would handle that shopping center out of our office. The management company had told us that. And so of who I worked for. So anyways, I had sent my lead tech over. We had a maintenance issue over there and he would, I had worked with him for quite a long time. Like we had kind of come up the ranks together. And so we had, I just had a comfort, like I trusted him. I just had a comfort level. Sent him over there. I didn't really, I just, I didn't really give it another thought. I delegated, I gave him it was kind of a bigger project of some concerns that need to be taken care of over there. And you need to go talk to the tenant. Like I had talked to the business, the tenant, and said, this is who's coming, this is what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I never followed up. And I just assumed that's dangerous. I assumed that because I think in passing, I said, hey, did you take care of so and so over at the plaza? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think in the system, in the computer system, it was marked as completed and what have you. So I just took his word for it. And I did not do enough follow up. And that bit me in the butt so bad. That ended up being such a big disaster. He didn't do any of the things that he said he did. The tenant was so irritated. And this was a business that was operating in a, commercial space, they at least. I mean, it created so much heartburn for me. And I had to really, then deal with an upset tenant, client, smooth that over and get more involved and actually get over there, see it with my own eyes, go with the tech. We got it taken care of, but my initial was I was irritated because he told me he did it in passing. But I didn't ask enough detailed questions, and I was mad. I was irritated that like I delegated this to you. You knew this was important, and then I'm over here fading all this heat, and the thing just went to hell in a handbasket fast. That was my initial feeling. But what I learned from that is that I did not do a key part of delegating, and that's follow up. That was on me. That problem was actually my lack of follow up. So follow up and follow up and follow up. So I am a big believer in delegation, and then for myself made note to myself of when I need to follow up and asking better questions. And when following up, asking better questions. So that was on me, but I was really irritated at first. But then I learned quickly, like delegation requires follow up, and not only just general follow up, but are you asking the right questions? Sometimes there are certain situations that you need to go see with your own eyes, that you need to follow up in a different way. Now, when it comes to delegation, remember I said it's kind of like it's not a one size fits all thing. One of the things when you delegate, I said you don't say like send this email, do this, like very concrete. You're not giving them any like autonomy or room to like figure this out on their own or come up with how they're going to create those results. An exception to that would be if you have, and this is where you just have to use some common sense, but if you have a brand new employee, someone that's just new on your team and they don't know, like they're new to the industry or whatever, there is a time and a place that you can delegate. Maybe you give them a punch list. You're like, I'm going to email you like 5 things that would be really helpful if you could knock those things out for us today. And it might say, send email to XYZ person, uh, do print and file these reports. I mean, it might be like a step-by-step thing because they don't know, because they're new, they're not experienced. So yes, when you delegate, most times I like to say go for the result and allow them to find their way there to create that result. But there are times that you have to give like an actual punch list per se, for delegation. And you just have to use your common sense on figuring out like which one is the better scenario for you. All right, second step on delegating is to give ownership, and you are not babysitting. Let them think. Why so many leaders want to do the thinking for everybody? Allow them to think, allow them to problem solve, allow them to stretch, allow them to have those moments of discomfort of how they're going to figure this out. Again, when I was learning, I'd say leadership and management and things like that, I was already a parent of a toddler. So that's and a really fiery, active toddler. He was amazing, but he kept me on my toes for sure. Um, and so I always, when I would, sometimes at work, when I looked at certain situations, like delegating, it's like on giving ownership. And again, not talking about a 2-year-old, but um, that it wasn't babysitting. So just like with kids, I'd be like, well, even with kids, like you want them to think, you want them to figure out things, even when they're really young. Like let them make a mess. Let them put their hands in the mud. Let them put the mud on their hair and they're outside and there's a water puddle and they've got mud everywhere. Let them figure that out. Like there's a lot of value in that when you're raising kids. So allow them to think, allow them to solve. So I saw like the connection so much when it came to like management and leadership and just dealing with and just people or even in parenting. So let them think, let them solve problems, let them stretch. So if you are still involved in every step when you delegate something, you didn't delegate it. You did not delegate it. You just assigned it to somebody and you're still doing the work. Third point I want to make on delegation is, can we please normalize imperfection? I was very fortunate to work when I first started in the apartment business to work and have bosses that understood that mistakes were going to happen and to normalize the imperfections. And that I really felt because I tend to be, especially at that point in my life where I expected perfection of myself. I didn't like to make mistakes. And I bet you relate to that too. A lot of high achievers really hate making mistakes. But you quickly learn that that is part of the process. And to normalize imperfection, um, when it comes to delegating, specifically is that when you delegate something, the way, and you've shared the end result, let's say, it may not be the way, your way. Remember early on when I started this episode, I talked about that, well, I just want to do it so I know it's done right. Well, sometimes, have you heard the saying? I grew up with the saying of there's more ways than one to skin a cat. Well, your way is not the only way. Newsflash, that would work. And so it may not be your way, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. Now, of course, it's got to fall in the parameters of with your company of what's acceptable and all of that. But I just mean in general, a lot of times when it comes to delegation, we don't want to do it because they're not going to do it the way that I would do it. And that doesn't mean if they do it differently, that doesn't mean it's wrong. So if your standard as a leader is you have to do it exactly like me, then you're always going to be overloaded. You're always going to be overwhelmed, period. Allow people to bring their own way into how they do things. Um, I know even like, let's talk about in sales and in leasing apartments. Yeah, there's the things that you need to touch on in that whole sales process, but everybody brings their way of doing it. That's called your personality. It's called your way of communicating. And so just because it's not your way doesn't mean that it's the wrong way. So stay open-minded to that when you delegate. And then when you delegate, you want to build decision makers, not order takers. Ask things like when you delegate after you sharing some things, ask, so what do you think? And then push the thinking part back to them. A lot of times and again, I'm relating this to 27 plus years of multifamily housing and over 20 years as a business owner. And people would sometimes on the team, those that become have more dependent personalities. So really, sometimes it is a personality thing. You have more independent thinkers on your team, those that like to, take the ball and run with it, and then others that are always coming back to the well for every single problem that happens during the day. And I remember, at times I would have people on the team that would call me or come into my office for every single little issue. And they would just be like, what do you want me to do? And these were like, you've been doing this a while, you know how things operate here. You need to just like this falls in your area of your capacity of what you can decide on, what you can do, how you can handle it, how you can solve this for the tenant. And so when they would come in and say, blah, 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 this is the problem. What do I need to do? I would say, what do you think we should do? What are your thoughts? How do you think we should solve this? Especially if I was visiting another one of the properties as I became a property supervisor. And I would go around and let's say I was at an apartment community and talking to the manager or assistant manager or whomever and they're telling me about a challenge that they're having or a problem and I always, my go-to was like, after they would explain everything, I would ask, what do you think? What do you think is the way to solve that? What are your thoughts? I want to hear. And sometimes they just like pause and they give you that look like, I don't know, I haven't even thought about it. That's okay. Well, that's what you're wanting to take them through. Sometimes we just need that little nudge of giving someone permission that, yeah, I want you to think about this. Like what would be what's a way to solve this issue? What are your thoughts? And again, a lot of times in the apartment business, when you're dealing with community, they're there on site and they know all the ins and outs and the backstory and the front story and the side story and what happened with this person 2 weeks ago and so on and so forth. So asking, what do you think? And putting the thinking and this goes back to problem solving, putting the problem solving back on them to where they're in the driver's seat and they're going to share that with you. Now, they might come up with something that's way off base and you're like, that's, too far out of alignment for what we can do as a company or what you had in mind. But the point is that you get them thinking and communicating. And then you can be, again, you want to like acknowledge that and the fact that they are trying to think through this problem. But then that's an opportunity if you guys aren't on the same page, then you can share with them, well, what would you think if we did this instead? Or let's talk about this option. So you want to create decision makers, not order takers. Order takers are a dime a dozen. And if you're going to develop a team and develop people, because you want to help them on their growth journey. And if you're going to do that, you don't want a team of order takers. Anybody can have that. You want to build a team of decision makers. So if you want to grow as a leader, because I know you do. I know you do. You might get frustrated with it sometimes. That's normal. But you might be sitting here and going, oh my God, you are speaking my language. I am so overwhelmed. I feel like I have to decide everything, do everything, and I'm exhausted. You're going to love your life a lot more and you're going to love your job a lot more if you tap into what I'm sharing today. So if you want to grow as a leader, if you want more results, if you want more capacity, if you want more freedom, you have to start being the one. You have to stop being the one that does absolutely everything. So let me say that again. Because I really, someone's hearing this today and they're like, I need this so bad. If you want to grow as a leader, and if that's if you want more results and you want more freedom, more flexibility, more capacity, you have to stop being the one who does everything. Start becoming the one who develops others to do it. You don't, my friend, you don't get rewarded for how much you carry. You get rewarded for how much you lead. Bring others along with you. Develop people. You can accomplish so much more through a team than you could ever on your own. I know that to be true for my life. All right, my friend, I hope that this has served you well. And would you send this to a friend or someone that you know, maybe you've had these side conversations about how you're both dealing with the same things at work and they need this message too. Share this on your social media, tag me if you do, or just drop it in your email to the person that needs to hear this just as bad as you needed it. All right, my friend, I will see you next time right here on the podcast. Until then, keep thriving in business and life. Friend, thanks for tuning into the podcast today. Take a moment and share this episode with that one or two people that you thought of as you were listening to today's episode. And I would love your quick review. It would mean the world to me for you to drop a review here on the podcast. And don't forget to follow and like the show so you never miss a beat on how to thrive in business and life.